Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 367, can you believe it, of Geeks in Space. I'm your host, Rob Commander Taco Malda, and with me today are two of the finest gentlemen that you could possibly meet. Gentlemen, would you like to say hello?
Hello, my name is Chris DeBona, and I am a meat popsicle.
Whoa.
I mean, you have to know where that's from. Come on.
Mr. Rob?
No,
It's
it's not from Rob. Is Rob able to talk?
I think Rob lagged out.
No, he's still there. He's just
He
muted.
just refuses to introduce
Rob,
himself.
you're muted, dude. Come on. And also, you're muted, Mr. Roseboom. I'm going to unmute you. He's saying no poop. I can't unmute someone else. Yeah.
Did I mute him with a clicky click?
You could have.
Hello?
Oh, there he goes.
There you go. Someone muted me, and I was unable to mute myself.
The other thing, hey, Taco,
yes, sir?
Make sure you move your mouse from the bottom of the casting screen so that it doesn't show that little thing, because it's constantly covering up your beautiful faces.
I don't think that it is actually directly related to the position of the mouse. I think it has something to do with the wigglings of the mouse, and it's just like a mouse sitting over on the corner of my desk. So I think that
flip it over, you know, like
this is riveting recording, folks.
For the four people who watch, man, it's for us. Us.
So the least we can do is take pride in our production.
Right.
No Bates today. No Nate today. Bates is at a summit. Nate is on vacation.
Wait, Bates is at a summit?
That's what true. I just got a text. It's probably lies.
Oh no, he's at a summit. I'm just skipping that.
It's the Hemo Summit, so he goes by himself.
Have you ever skipped a meeting and then some of the people at the meeting realize you're skipping the meeting? That's me today. I'm feeling good about that.
Feeling good about skipping that meeting? Yep. And now you're recording it, documenting it, and putting it online.
Yep. I'm gonna recording my crime speed was the smartest thing ever.
Excellent. You've done well. Hey, the first link right now on Taco Zone is somebody ported Diablo to a web interface, but it doesn't work for me. And I was wondering if it would work for one of you guys, because I'm on a Mac, so a lot of that.
Oh, stuff, you're on. Yeah.
Gamey stuff doesn't happen on a 10-year-old Mac.
So play the shareware version. No, play the shareware version.
I assumed you'd need to.
Request failed.
Yeah, okay. Then that thing's garbage and we hate it and we don't want to talk about it anymore. You probably needed the original source files.
Well, but if it did work, huh? How cool would that
Can you imagine Diablo?
I enjoyed Diablo.
It's not Diablo 2.
No, which was the greatest game ever.
The greatest game ever.
Fantastic. Click, 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 click.
So the Hawaii telescope, have you been following this?
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I'm gonna pick science over religion anytime. I know it sounds terrible.
What?
I feel for the Native Hawaiians. I mean, they're really cool people and sweet and stuff, but
is there an environmental concern or is this purely a religious one?
It's an indigenous people's rights concern.
Right.
So, and I get it, man. But in the end, I just think the keck is more important than that. So,
right.
I know it makes me a bastard, but so be it.
I mean, that movement there is pretty strong, though. I mean, it always kind of has been.
Well, I mean, Rob and I are deep in Hawaiian lore. You have to realize,
right?
The game, you know,
that's right.
There's the whole Defend Hawaii movement and the rest, and we adore our friends. But it's a telescope, man. I can't be anti-telescope. It's not who I am.
Right. I have a strong problem with any religion that takes any position that is anti-learning. Like that to me says, okay, now there's something like Galileo. I mean, you're doing something wrong. Like, if you want to believe in God, great, more power to you. If you want to have pride in whatever your thing is, cool, more power to you. I'm all for whatever gives you hope in this bleak universe. But when you are going directly against the gaining of human knowledge, that makes me sad. Just makes me sad. I mean, that's the environment I grew up into.
I don't think it's quite that sort of level of anti-science in this case.
No, it's not anti-science. They're
like
pro their
Chris
rights
said,
as indigenous people. You know,
right.
I mean,
mostly it is about this is native land. This is a sacred place for us.
yeah.
And now you want to destroy it and build something there. So it isn't really anti-science. It's more about land rights and
right.
indigenous people.
How much acreage are we talking about?
You know, this is probably, I mean, it's a bunch of telescopes, right? So
is it like an array or just like one big one?
So Hawaii protesters block access road to stop construction of massive telescope. How much people would write better headlines? It's, I mean, probably where it's sitting. Yeah, it's a 30-meter telescope. Yeah. So call it 1.5 acres, probably, for the building and its associated bits. And they don't want the road to be built. No, they don't want the road to be built up to it. I mean, I get it. I get what they're saying. But, man, you know, there's not, I mean, like the KEC is where we do the measurement of CO2 levels over time. And we've been doing it since like what, the 30s, the 10s. You know, it's like, this is an important place for science. And it's just like, I gotta be, you know, jeez, stinks. I mean, it just totally stinks, but I gotta be for the KEC, you know?
Sigh. Like a lot of those big old telescopes, like the Arecibo in Puerto Rico, that's shut down now, right?
Yeah, I think they declared the Arecibo a national heritage site. Remember?
But does that mean that it's actually? But does that mean it's actually operating, or is it just a?
I thought it was still operating, but like at a crappier level or something. Yeah, it operates still. Yeah.
I mean, they need it to film the sequel to Contact.
There's a sequel?
No,
that's news.
No, Contact is a good movie, except for the parts that weren't good.
Yeah, no, Arecibo's still working. You know.
No, is the what is it? The Very Large Array, is that thing still in operation? Yeah. Mm. Oh, well done with the mute.
Well, you know, I'm a professional, Rob.
Right.
Yeah, the Very Large Array. Actually, I thought they were expanding it even. Let's look that up on the internet.
It's going to be the Very Larger Array.
It's the largest.
In non-telescopy news, I put up a link about CPAN, which is unsurprisingly...
it is the least telescopy news.
Really. It is, yes. And it is unsurprisingly dwindling. It's like the article has all the metrics, you know, like releases and contributors and all that. And they've basically, in the last like 4 or 5 years, they've basically fallen to like early 2000s level in terms of most of their traffic. You know, Perl is dead. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, it kind of is. You know, I mean, people have either moved to Python, PHP, or Ruby, or Scala, or Haskell, or kind of anything. You know, Go.
The last thing I actually wrote in Perl. The last thing I wrote in Perl was I wrote a little wrapper library to the Hue API so that I could control my lights from some scripts. That was the last time, and that was, man, that has to have been 4 or 5 years ago. I've had no reason to write a line of Perl since.
Yeah, no, I hear you. You need to move your mouse again. Anyway, Perl. Perl's. There was a really funny story where somebody took a picture of paint splatter, ran it through OCR, and then ran it through Perl, and like 14% of them compiled. You know,
that seems about right.
So I'm like, you know, Perl.
Perl is a very syntactically forgiving language.
No, it is. I mean, I've said this before in previous episodes.
Countless episodes.
But like, I remember the day where I was like, I was hacking on some Perl for, I think it was actually the VA Linux website. And I was like, you know, I bet you if I did this, it would work. And it worked. And I was like, oh no, I'm fundamentally broken at this point. You know, you shouldn't be able to do that with a computer programming language. You know, like I made up a keyword and it just worked exactly like I thought it would. And I'm like, that's no good, man. I'm broken. That's it. I'm done. I used to be a programmer. Now I'm just a weird cultist, you know?
This encourages bad practices.
It really does.
I loved it. I loved it so.
Sure. Who didn't, you know?
Rob, you finally saw Endgame yesterday.
For the first time.
First time, yeah.
I was going to revoke your nerd card.
Well, I knew what happened, so, you know. I figured
the part where the X-Men showed up and saved the day. That was pretty cool, huh?
that was a surprise to me.
Wolverine's like snickety snick,
Yeah.
Deadpool's like, I'm not even in this universe.
I'm not even in this universe.
But he was there, thanks to the snap.
Now, I rewatched it last night on my TV, which is a fine TV. It's like a 60-inch flat screen or whatever. It's fine. But it really, like that last scene, I really was like, I want to be watching this on the IMAX theater always.
You mean the funeral scene?
No, I do not mean the funeral scene. I mean the epic battle. Avengers assemble, whoomp, and then they all charge.
I'm sorry. When he's got the hammer, it's like Captain American, and they go and they just do that whole. Yeah, it's a great moment. They all.
But there's a whole bunch of like big ensemble shots in that sequence, and I was watching it.
It's a little contrived, actually. I'll be honest with you. I felt it was a little contrived the way they try to bring people together. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
Well, the other thing is they were really careful to try to give a lot of the key relationships like a moment. Like, let's connect. Like, there's a shot with Pepper and Tony together, and there's a shot. All the major pairings get a little moment together. So the ones that were missing, because there was a couple. I don't think Bucky has a moment with Cap. There's a couple of other ones. So it's like the things that are missing actually.
They underused Sebastian Stan. That's true.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I found the last battle scenes to be a little bit tiresome sometimes, particularly when Doctor Strange just beams in everyone who they lost before.
Oh, see, I cried.
And
it was nice to see Peter Parker.
The obligatory girl power shot where all the female heroes.
Well, it was like
get together.
Like a Yes album cover,
I thought, wow, okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, other than obviously that was put in, for reasons.
A little pandery, yeah, that's true. There was a lot of fan service in this one.
Yeah.
I don't know. We are men. I have spoken to women, and they feel differently about that shot.
No, it's universally loved by so many. Yeah, like there was like
I really liked that shot. But I'll tell you what kills me every time is every time Pepper Potts comes on screen, I'm just like, no, you are Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't like you.
She's just awful. She should go steam her suit or whatever.
A lot of new stuff in composting.
Yeah, a lot of new stuff in composting here at the old battle in Jersey. It's like really. And also, wasn't the Avengers building in upstate New York? I thought it was in upstate New York, not in New Jersey. There were some odd continuity questions. Let me ask one. So, if Jackass von Jerkington Thanos is teleporting over in 2014 with all of his troops and bad guys stuff.
He teleported back from the future.
Right.
He didn't teleport from the present.
No,
because they sent Bad Nebula back. She then
Bad Nebula
2014 pulled
2014 Thanos and troops over.
Right, so he had but they sent her back, so they had all the information they needed.
No, that wasn't it.
Oh, okay.
Because they had to go back and they had to replace the stones. Is it just the stones you have to replace? I mean, and where did future Thanos come from to snap his fingers in the first place? They violated their own rules of time travel. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, their rules of time travel are silly because it's time travel.
Well, I know.
Where's your joy, man? Where's your joy?
It's stuck sometimes in the.
I actually have a harder time wrapping my brain around Cap's ending.
And also exactly he was frozen under the ice and didn't age a day. It's like he's kind of immortal-ish, and then he decides to blow 50 years with Agent Carter, which I get. Love conquers all. But then can't he just hop into the time thing and become a baby like Paul Rudd did during the testing?
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm like, I don't buy it.
Well,
I will say I love that Agent Carter was in that, because that is my favorite Marvel spin-off on TV. I love that show.
And they had Jeeves had a cameo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jarvis. No, I don't know. I really liked it. But yeah, my biggest problem is trying to wrap my head around. So did Cap live out his life in this timeline? Or did he go to a parallel timeline, which then he used the GPS tracker that Tony made to come back to our timeline? In which case, his actions for 50 years of living out a lifetime in another timeline would clearly leave that universe screwed up, because they said that you'd have to deliver the stones. So therefore, he would have to go back, kill himself, and then return one last time to our universe. There's a lot of... It
didn't make any sense. I mean, if he chose to do that, he was basically choosing to bifurcate his personal timeline. And then there was the, let's call it the Kelvin timeline or whatever for...
the Kelvin timeline. The J.J. Abrams verse.
The prime, like lots of lens fair.
And forget the time travel stuff. Let's get into the physics of super strength. Or like how if you're falling 1,000 feet, you can be saved if someone grabs you with the last foot before you hit the earth.
This is the tomato paste theory. We've talked about this, right? Yeah. Tony Stark should be tomato paste. I mean,
it's a comic book movie. It's ridiculous.
When they threw him against that bus stop in Avengers 1, OG Avengers. He should have just been like, oh, I guess he's dead. Or they should have lampshaded it and said, oh, I heard you have inertia powers or something. Like anti-inertia powers.
To wrap up, I enjoyed the movie thoroughly. I thought it was very pandery at the end, but I guess it is the end, so they probably have to throw that stuff in there.
Yeah, and now they have like super OP Captain Marvel. I wish they could just like have Tessa Thompson just do everything. Can we just have her flying around sorting people on a Pegasus? That'd be cool.
Look, they've had 50 years of making comic books with characters that have disparate powers, and they even addressed it to a certain extent in Spider-Man. Where's Captain Marvel? Not here. Just because the overpowered character is not around, is not available, doesn't mean that you can't tell a localized story. Daredevil had really cool stories on the Netflix series, and they didn't need Iron Man to go and shoot everybody.
That's true.
It's a universal.
I learned some stuff about the Netflix Disney stuff that I think I can share. Like, it's apparently really rough to work on those because everything goes through Disney and Kevin Feige or whatever. So you remember in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they go to the future, right?
Yeah.
They literally did that because they were having such a hard time operating in the present within the frameworks of the movies. And then they were not allowed to call the Kree. So they were always calling them the blue ones.
Yep.
Or the blue jerks or whatever. And
all that stuff was so obvious too.
It was so obvious, but I was like, dude, we know who the Kree are, but they didn't want to ruin it for Captain Marvel. And I'm like, I get it. But
I think they've learned their lesson there because all of the Disney shows,
because they're not doing them anymore. Yeah.
Well, all the shows that they're doing are miniseries. They're like, going to be like 8 episodes, 12. They're not going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 6 seasons. Yeah. I mean, that's a different deal because if you're going to produce 6 seasons, you have to empower those writers and creators to be autonomous. If you're going to create an 8-episode miniseries like Falcon or WandaVision, you don't have that problem. You can agree on the 10 things that they're going to do and then let them go do their thing.
Yeah.
It means less total content produced, but hopefully it means more consistent universe if that matters to you.
Yeah, I mean, for Disney Max or Go or Now,
and maybe better stories too because they're short runs. You can plan for it.
Well, I mean, and also they're longer than a movie, so you can actually get a little
some depth,
more deeper.
I mean, I'm not lying. I think that WandaVision could be like the greatest thing in the universe if they do what I think they're going to do with it.
It could be. It could be.
So, you guys both saw The Boys?
Yep, I got through episode 3 last night with my.
I also am through episode 3.
So
I'm only 2 episodes in, but
they I didn't know how they were going to handle it because there's a very controversial scene in the comic book with Starlight in the beginning, and they rolled it back a little bit, so it was just the Deep being an assaulter. I
assume that it's just the straight up thing in the comic book.
Oh no, it's way worse.
Oh, great.
It is way worse. It is way worse. Like I was like, I don't know if I should be reading this comic, but yeah, it was way worse.
Well, that scene made me uncomfortable. But on the whole, that show, I don't know, man. That Seth Rogen and that Evan Goldberg fellow. Now they've done Preacher, and they've done this, and they've got a third show. Future Man. Those are all darn fine shows. Like, I feel like
they're all kind of dark, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're funny too. I feel like there was sort of that J.J. Abrams crew of TV show makers, and then there's like the CW crew, and then like the Michael Schur, like the Parks and Recreation, and like that's there's 4 or 5 like super producers, but who would have predicted Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg were going to be making like what's possibly some of the best?
You know, here's the thing. So I call this the fat middle, right? I don't know if I yammered to you guys about this. I used to think LA was sort of like, I would go to parties there and people are like, oh, they're so talented. You should talk to them. Super talented. And it was just like, you know, it was hard to be in these parties. It was really hard to be around there. But then I sort of met these people who were sort of like, they're craft people. They're like sysadmins, you know, they're that best people. They run shows. They produce great stuff. They're not going to get involved with like weird, like reality TV where you eat weird food or whatever. I mean, it's just, you know, they work really hard to produce really good stuff and nobody knows their names except for maybe like nerds like us. We know who Michael Schur is. We know who Mark Goffman is. We know who these people are. Right. And so like, but they're really neat and they're not the top line stars or anything. They don't walk the red carpet, but they make great TV. And so we have these like clusters, like you're talking about, you know, where you've got like, you know, the J.J. Abrams cluster and the Mike Judge cluster. Like he's been working with like the guy who plays Richard for 20 years. He was one of the voices in Beavis and Butthead. It's like they stick together, they produce great stuff, and they ship, you know. And I kind of admire it, honestly. So, and I think Seth Rogen is one of them. You know, him and Goldberg. It's like Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. Who would have thought that Adam McKay and Will Ferrell would have ended up creating Vice and The Big Short and these amazing shows, right?
It's a lot of good stuff for one career.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, you don't predict those guys to be like the Spielbergs. Spielberg is Spielberg. You get that.
Yeah, but Spielberg never did Ricky Bobby. You know, it's like you're That's like, true. Where's his Ricky Bobby?
He did make an entire movie where you were hunted by a car.
Wait, you're talking about Christine? Spielberg made Christine?
Didn't he made Drive? It was a made-for-TV.
Oh, thing. It's bad. Maximum Drive.
No, Maximum Overdrive is a Stephen King movie from the 80s,
which was basically Christine but with trucks.
Yeah, but also directed by Stephen King himself.
Yeah, it was from a short story called Trucks.
Yeah. So. No, I honestly I loved Maximum Overdrive. It was what's his name? Martin Sheen's kid.
Charlie Sheen.
No, the other one.
Emilio Estevez.
I thought it was
and
Charlie
he's like they're trapped in like a diner and they're being surrounded by trucks, and then the satellite goes away, and it's all fine.
Cars, it's so great.
It was great.
And the episode for that one is a really good one too.
And the Green Goblin truck. I mean, that was
it was the circus
characters
truck.
in the show, right?
It was the first Marvel movie. I don't know if you know this. No, I'm kidding.
So the other just to wrap on the boys, I'm 3 episodes in. It is the one show right now that Kathleen and I both are desperate to see the next episode of. I cannot wait to see. I haven't read the comic, and I'm so excited to see where they go with it. But Rob, you said you saw Pennyworth. What's the word there?
Yeah.
So I'm 2 episodes into Pennyworth. It kind of, I'm not sure when it became canon of Alfred being in the military. Exactly when in Batman that happened, but I know at some point it became known that Alfred was a medic in the military, right?
Well, they must be moving the war forward. Like it starts, he's there with Nelson, and then
yeah. So this show is about Alfred post-war. I mean, just post-war.
Korea
and World War II.
World War II. Okay.
So he's 1,000 now,
and he is trying to start a security business in London with his pals who were also in the war. They were all special services, SAS, I believe. And I don't know. It's it's a little bit like a old-timey British version of the A-Team.
Oh, cool.
Mixed with a little bit of the secret society stuff that became really popular in Batman, like the Court of Owls, the League of Assassins. So in Pennyworth, they have the Rippers, who are a group of evildoers from Whitechapel, and so it's a little bit
too early for the craze. And like the really great gangsters of the 60s and 70s and 80s.
So it's a little bit hit and miss.
Is there still a lot of rubble? Because they were rebuilding in Ration.
Actually, no, they have not shown any of the damage done by the German rockets or anything. Nothing like that. Everything's cleaned up. It is
like
sort of a
clubs eating some food.
It's sort of an alternate timeline.
No, we can't handle that.
They in the last episode I watched, they publicly execute people and eviscerate them on TV. so it isn't quite set in the reality that you might remember.
Is there a queen, or is
there is the queen? He has met the queen.
The racist guy.
In fact, he meets the queen. The very first episode.
Oh, okay, so she's still she's still the monarch, in charge of the strong word,
So I don't know. I think it's too early to give it.
Where are the public executions? Are they like on Trafalgar? Is that like the Fifth Plinth?
I'm not sure.
It's like a guillotine or something. Yeah.
They just had.
Are they killing Nazis? This is an important question. So, are they killing war criminals?
No.
They're just killing randoms.
Yep, random people.
Like tourists who go
criminals.
Bad guys.
They were all bad people, Chris.
Every one of them is plinth.
Now, so on Trafalgar Square, they have a number of plinths and they have statues on them.
So Alfred
has changed a lot. So that's background.
Alfred is a dashing, smart young man who, of course, is a badass when it comes to fighting and very clever. And he's a planner. And him and his two buddies go and they tackle the criminal underworld of London.
Like you do.
Have they had like many, Wayne Enterprises like things here and there? Do they buy their spy stuff from Wayne Enterprises?
Thomas Wayne is in the very first episode. Alfred gets Thomas Wayne's drunk sister out of a bar, and they exchange cards. Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, that's a good way to tie it in, because you have to assume that there's a relationship that exists between those characters going back.
Well, eventually he starts doing work for Thomas Wayne.
I mean, I think.
Wait, is Thomas the grandfather of Bruce?
Nope, Bruce's dad.
That's what I thought. So that doesn't make sense. That would make Bruce like 80.
You can't assign logic to timelines.
I'm assigning logic.
Well,
you just can't.
I mean, if
then we might as well throw it out the window. I bet you Pennyworth is secretly Bruce's father.
If you look at the Frank Miller Batman, he's old as hell in there. So yeah.
No. And that was in the 80s.
Let me explain my theory.
If you look through the timeline, it's actually really interesting to read up on time dilation in the Marvel universe. That's a really weird subject because, I mean, Reed Richards was originally Ben Grimm and Reed Richards fought in World War II.
You just had to bring up the Fantastic Four.
You had to bring up the Fantastic Four. Stop it.
Bam!
And it's very important that I tell you my theory about how Pennyworth is technically Bruce's father. So Pennyworth saves Thomas's sister from the bar fight or whatever, right? Or her honor being besmirched, whatever. But then they fall in love. They have a child, but it's out of wedlock, and he's British and she's American, and that cannot be. So Thomas and Bruce's mom in the comics, they secretly adopt Bruce, and they say that they're his son. And then Pennyworth is bound to the family forever. And then the sister dies in some horrible accident. So there you go.
And with that,
she dies in childbirth because it's World War II.
But she dies in the alley. being shot by
No, the mother dies in the
burglar.
alley.
The biological mother?
No. The adoptive mother.
You're making this way harder.
I
than it
can't
needs
believe
to
you're
be.
not following along. This is brilliant. This is freaking brilliant. No, what happens? Pennyworth and Bruce's sister get together, but she dies in childbirth, giving birth to
So
Bruce.
you're saying
So then they pull Bruce
Thomas,
over and say it's just Bruce's, and it's
so
Thomas's.
you're saying Thomas is Bruce's uncle, not father.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly. And
so the monkey's his uncle.
but he never knows. And so Pennyworth just keeps it to himself. And then one day he's going into the Batcave after Pennyworth dies, and he finds a note. And it says, "I always loved you, Bruce. But so did your parents," or something.
They
The note
discover
under
it.
the
They
giant
discover it through 23andMe,
Yes.
and it becomes the greatest infomercial / comic book crossover ever made.
That's right. Can you imagine?
I don't need to imagine. You spelled it out in grotesque detail.
Well,
Only a matter of time before that
it's
happens.
not grotesque. I think this is high
it's
art for
true.
comic books, just for the record.
It's true. This is going to happen now because it's been spoken on the internet.
And also, the DC universe is sloppy as crap anyway, so they
Yeah,
don't mind
they
throwing away
do not
100 years
care.
of canon. You know,
They don't have a Kevin Feige.
they really don't. I mean,
All right,
Zack
folks,
Snyder.
I'm going to put up the slide and say goodbye.
But we haven't talked about the implications for Bruce's parentage, if he has any cousins or
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
The slide's up.
Or the Flash air fryer.
right.
What about the Flash's air fryer?
All right. This was episode 367 of
And it
Geeks
wasn't our
Geeks.
best. It wasn't our best episode.
It was not.
This may be our best idea, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
Farewell, Rob and Chris.
All right.
I'm gonna get breakfast.
I'm clicking the button.